Well, I'm from the Business Council of Australia these days, the last 5 years, looking after international engagement and security. My sense is that it's timely. It's certainly time that a leader from Australia visited China. It's our number one, and I can talk about statistics, but it's a trading relationship that's bound up in mutuality. And what we want to sell and what they want to buy, there's a great deal of mutuality, and that's been the history of our 50-year relationship. I think it will be a turning point. From business's point of view, if there are good political relations, it opens markets wider than might currently exist, and we would want that. My fundamental message has always been that Australia is a trading nation, first and foremost. China is our largest trading partner, our largest export market, and we import more from China than anywhere else. And so those 3 points are absolutely fundamental to our medium-term growth and our wealth and our employment prospects. Well, the first thing about the China market, it's always reflective of the China economy. How is the China economy going? Because our economy runs to a large degree parallel to China's economy. We seek to hold the markets that we have. Strong in LNG, strong in coal, strong in iron ore, but we have been strong in education and also tourism, which have been import markets for us, but effectively export dollars. There is more diversity that we can do within China, but also more diversity we can do within the region. My argument is we need to hold what we have in a competitive sense with China to maintain those incomes and those sales levels. And I think that that's now going to be more possible to do that. China is changing. They changed their attitude. It was China that changed. It wasn't Australia that changed. So we had to accommodate ourselves to that. It's a growing country. It's moved away from a century of humiliation, which the Chinese carry heavily in their consciousness. We need to be understanding, and we need to try and rebuild some trust between us, at least in the trade environment. And if you look at the statistics, in the broad trade, we've maintained in the last 5 years about 11% increase. In our export markets, especially our exports markets, we've maintained 9% increase. Some segments were unfairly targeted by China. It was a policy that has taken it nowhere. Australia stood its ground, it stood for its principles, and we deal now in a realistic way with China going forward. Well, the first agenda was we were in a bad state, particularly in political levels. We needed to stabilise it. We needed, as I said, we were actually doing quite well and continue to do well, broadly speaking, in the trade and export agendas. What more do we need to do? Well, firstly, you need to have leaders talking to each other face to face, not on the sidelines of big meetings, but face to face meetings in each other's countries and capitals, and I think that's now started. We've had success with our trade minister, we've had success with our defence minister, we've had success, particularly our foreign minister has been the most widely travelled foreign minister, I think, in Australia's history in the short time they've been in government, and has done well. Did well yesterday to secure a very, very unfair situation with a incarcerated journalist, an Australian citizen. So there's been progress, and that's all good. Behind that progress, you give confidence to the bankers that lend money to business to know that their business will grow, and bankers fundamentally want to get repaid at some point. So those dynamics are working well. One final point is, remember, the global financial crisis, because of China's economy, meant that Australia did not suffer badly during the global financial crisis. Neither did Canada. None of our banks went sideways. You know, we were able to retain the income levels from our exports to go through the global financial crisis, which devastated the world. So the impact of the China economy, the impact of China's politics, those things play heavily globally and in strategic issues. we will not always agree. We will not always agree. But we're looking for an equilibrium, a strategic equilibrium between us and China to deal with our mutuality on trade, the cultural links which now run into 50 odd years. There's a deep understanding, a huge diaspora of Chinese in Australia, politically significant, as we saw in the last federal election. So I think that there's a much better understanding in Australia, broader community, political community, and we still have to manage our big strategic issues with the US and China, trying to find their place with each other in a much more complex world which continues to unfold with surprising events only in recent days. I think Prime Minister should be a very good listener. Listen to what the Chinese are saying. We understand them well, but he needs to show as a new leader that he will listen to them and hear effectively what their concerns are. They are very concerned about building and rebuilding a trust. They did more to damage the trust than did Australia. But it's not a time to tell them that they were wrong, which they were wrong. It was not in their mutual interest to do what they did. And don't see Australia as a threat, but as a capable, sensible, balanced democracy that respects the China system, the way that they want to run their country, and that the mutuality that exists between us is something that we should always make sure we hold dear and make sure it works for us. We're not asked to go back to where things exactly were. You can't always do that. The world strategically has changed, but we are not a threat. We are not a threat to China. The reality is that we have been the same, always been the same, a trading nation with good long-term relationships with the United States and others in the Western world. That will continue, but there is room in the park for multiple different views, and they should respect that as we should respect them. And that first and foremost, let's deal with peace issues, let's deal with non-combative outcomes, let's deal with the climate challenges in all its manifestations, and we should always be respectful and keep talking to each other. The representation that Australia has through its embassy and its consuls in China and through Austrade is hugely important. Our largest Austrade contingent anywhere in the world is in China. That has been maintained all through the COVID period. We've had excellence in service from our current ambassador and our prior ambassador. There is a deep understanding of China. We need to make sure that we are putting in place in China people of that capability. There will always be challenges in China. It's not always easy. It hasn't been easy, but you need to be always prepared to deal with the unexpected. And I think that's. So be cautious, be positive, and look for good outcomes that have a mutuality about it, and that will sustain the relationship.